Up next on The Reveal.
Police department.
I smoked and smoked, and I can't get an answer to the door.
A police officer's wife shot in the head with his department-issued handgun, found under her unconscious body. The local sheriff notified her family she was dead. But the young mother survived. With no memory of the shooting, who shot the officer's wife? The reveal begins now with investigators Faith Abube and Brendan Keefe.
Welcome to The Reveal, an investigative show where news is made. Who shot the officer's wife? Our investigation began with that one question.
Instead of an answer, we found only more mysteries. For the next half hour, we're going to bring you our entire trigger investigation. It begins with the sound of gunfire inside a Griffin apartment. It will end with someone in handcuffs.
I believe I just heard a shot fired coming in my residence. 2 rounds of smoke and smoke, and I can't get an answer to the door.
Police department.
Body cams are rolling as Griffin police officers draw their weapons to sweep an apartment, looking for a shooter with 2 young children inside. They find a locked closet.
I have to kick that door in.
Inside, a body behind the door. It's the young mother, Jessica Boynton, bleeding from a head wound.
Everybody clear out.
Police find a gun underneath her body. It's one of theirs, a police-issue .40 caliber Glock, assigned to the victim's husband, Officer Matthew Boynton.
Stay out, Matt.
Get him downstairs. Get him downstairs.
It happened, Dad. I love her. She loved me. She told me she loved me, but she did it.
Officer Boynton breaks down as they load her into an ambulance.
If I could have been here 2 minutes earlier, man, I could have jumped in front of the gun and tried to get it from her, man.
She's still breathing. She's got good pulse, blood pressure. She's even fighting with EMS, dude.
That's right, she survived.
They were calling me the miracle child
Why's that?
because what I went through, not a lot of people survived through it.
Jessica Boynton was in a medically induced coma for nearly 3 weeks with a traumatic brain injury. She would make a full recovery, but with no memory of the shooting. What are they telling you happened to you?
They're saying it was self-inflicted.
That it was an attempted suicide?
Yes.
Do you believe that?
No, I do not.
Your head was found on a pillow. In fact, there's a huge blood stain on that pillow. So that's where you ended up while you were clinging to life.
Perfectly laid on a pillow.
But the GBI found no blood spatter at all on the closet wall. And there wasn't just one bullet hole, there were 2 on different walls. One bullet ended up in the baby's bedroom. If this were an attempted suicide, would you expect to find 2 shots?
No, they're saying I had to have done it like this, down, but yet the bullet goes through the ceiling and the roof and out the wall. Our closet was not the Matrix. It couldn't have happened like that.
I believe I just heard a shot fired coming in my residence. I just came up the stairs 2 rounds.
Officer Boynton radioed in the shooting around 1 a.m., but multiple neighbors told the GBI they heard a single gunshot hours earlier.
About 10:45, I thought I heard a gunshot.
We heard something, and I said, what was that?
Yeah, it sounded like a gunshot.
Just one shot? That's all we heard. But other people said they heard another one later on tonight.
4 people in 2 different apartments said they heard a gunshot 2 hours before Officer Boynton called in shots fired.
Well, they didn't report it.
The only individual reporting shots fired at 1 a.m. is the husband, Officer Boynton.
I believe I just heard a shot fired coming in my residence. I just came up the stairs 2 rounds.
No one else called this in, right?
Right.
No one else heard 2 gunshots at 1 a.m.
No, not to my knowledge.
There's a notation in the dispatch records to call Sheriff Beam before calling the GBI. Why would Sheriff Beam be involved?
Well, I didn't know it till that night, but Sheriff Beam is Matthew Boynton's grandfather.
Hello, Mr. Boynton. Officer Boynton wouldn't talk with us.
Phone call completed.
But he did talk with 911 and the GBI the night of the shooting.
Are you on EMS? Mm-hmm. Can you please dispatch a unit out to my location? I'll be back there in about 2 minutes. She's having suicidal thoughts. Any weapons inside the house? Just my service weapons.
Records show a lengthy text message was sent from Jessica's phone to her husband's phone saying in part, "I can't do this anymore. This is not the first time I have had suicide thoughts. I love you and the boys." How do you think a text message from your phone, essentially a suicide note, was sent from your phone to Matt's phone?
There was no lock on my phone.
There were many other text messages on Officer Boynton's phone, according to the GBI case file. At least 68 texts were exchanged between the husband and a female Spalding County dispatcher that night.
Who is this person he was texting?
His girlfriend.
His mistress?
Yes, his mistress.
I'm sure, as you've heard, I'm getting a divorce. I was. Here recently, she did confirm that the second baby's not mine.
Since things weren't working out with your wife, did you have a girlfriend or anything? Or
I had a friend that was a girl, or is a girl.
More than a minute after receiving the suicide text from his wife's phone, Officer Boynton texted his girlfriend an unrelated message. "Ha ha, I'm sorry, I didn't think about that, LOL." Phone records also show he sent the mistress a text message within seconds of the shots fired radio call. "Give me a few to text back. Long story. I'll tell you later."
And I can't get an answer to the doors.
Stay outside. I'll be there in about 2.
10-4.
the clothes you have on now was the clothes you were wearing tonight?
Yes.
Officer Boynton told the GBI he didn't change clothes that night, but Walmart cameras recorded him wearing a gray sweatshirt at 10:45 p.m., and police body cameras showed him wearing a red hoodie a little more than 2 hours later.
I didn't try to brush off anything. I didn't try to wash my hands, nothing, because I won't, I know GSR and all that would be involved.
So you got word from the GBI early on that he was likely to be cleared?
Yes.
With the suicide text message and Jessica's DNA found on her husband's gun, Griffin's police chief returned Officer Boynton to full duty months before the GBI investigation was closed. Boynton was back on armed patrol 6 weeks before the GBI ever talked with the veteran Atlanta trauma surgeon who treated Jessica's wound. Dr. Vernon Henderson said the description of a self-inflicted gunshot wound didn't fit, noting her pristine and unmarked hands and calling it a very unusual direction in which to point the gun at oneself with the intention of committing suicide. Doctors saved Jessica Boynton's life, but they couldn't save her family. A judge giving Officer Boynton temporary custody because of the shooting.
Getting to see them every day and watching them grow more and more into the little boys and men that they're going to be someday.
And you don't get to see that?
No. They're my everything. I wouldn't trade them for anything, no matter the situation. I wouldn't trade those two boys for anything.
Coming up next on The Reveal, GBI investigators explain away a key piece of evidence, the officer's cell phone.
How in the world is he texting his girlfriend while he's also calling in a shots fired call outside of the apartment?
My understanding of the laws of physics is that one person cannot be in two places at the same time.
Welcome back to The Reveal. The GBI completely cleared Officer Matthew Boynton in his wife's shooting before talking with the Atlanta trauma surgeon who treated her, before talking to the first officer on the scene, and before talking to the next-door neighbor who heard a single gunshot hours earlier.
I believe I just heard a shot fired coming in my residence. I just came up the stairs 2 rounds.
Officer Matthew Boynton told investigators he transmitted the call for help from outside the apartment after quickly running inside to look around and get his police radio.
Be advised of a smoke gun smoke, and I can't get an answer to the door.
After you got on the radio and you were outside communicating on the radio, you never went back in to actually just check on the kids for your safety. You're thinking she could still be...
I didn't know where she was. If I was dealing with a possible active scenario where she still had the gun and she had shot Tyler.
Stay outside.
10-4.
If it was you, knowing your kids were in the apartment and you just heard a gunshot, is there anything that would keep you out?
No, somebody really strong would have had to hold me back in order not to get into my apartment to get my children.
But just seconds before the husband's radio call was entered by dispatchers, phone records show the husband's phone was texting his girlfriend. "Give me a few to text back. Long story, I'll tell you later."
How in the world is he texting his girlfriend while he's also calling in a shots fired call outside of the apartment?
My understanding of the laws of physics is that one person cannot be in two places at the same time.
Sheila Matthews has investigated the shooting for her newspaper, The Grip. This GBI evidence photo caught her attention. It's Officer Boynton's phone by the microwave, so the reporter called the GBI Assistant Special Agent in charge of the investigation.
Agent Walker.
This activity on his cell phone had to have taken place inside the kitchen in his apartment.
How do you come to that conclusion?
Because if you go to the photographs that are part of your investigative case file, there's a photograph and also the evidence report for his cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
It was retrieved from the kitchen counter in front of the microwave oven.
No, it wasn't. It was actually from
from him. We put it on the counter to take a picture of it.
The GBI's own photographs, search warrant, and evidence log all agree the officer's phone was found on the kitchen counter.
Well, I don't know. It could have been simply that all his, he left his stuff there. His phone was given to someone else at Griffin PD. They put the phone in the thing because they knew GBI wanted it, and that's where we're going to be while he was taken to the police department. I mean, I'm sure there's a plausible explanation to it without trying to come up with some sort of, theory that, he has to be here in the kitchen answering these text messages.
Police body camera footage recorded just minutes after the shots fired call shows a cell phone in front of the microwave, exactly where the GBI photographed Officer Boynton's phone.
You're trying to match up times of where he is getting these text messages or how he's responding to them, that he has to be in the kitchen. I mean, you can't prove that.
That was when approximately 24 minutes into the conversation, his demeanor changed and everything flipped.
And I want to ask you something else. Are you recording any of this?
Am I recording it? Yes, for an article, yes, just to make sure I get quotes proper.
Well, listen, you're going to start recording these things. You need to let me know ahead of time before you do it, before I start answering questions.
Okay.
That's the way we're going to play this game, Sheila. If that's what you want to do, you want to start recording me and start quoting me, you better let me know ahead of time, or we're going to have a problem.
The husband's phone was not done making calls after the shooting. Hours after it was sealed in an evidence bag like this one and logged into GBI evidence, Officer Boynton's phone was still calling his mistress. The GBI Director of Professional Standards had an explanation for that, too.
This is Fred with GBI again. I figure out what happened. That phone never got back into the officer's hand. The agent had that phone. I think Chris DeMarco had the phone, and they was trying to get in the gate. And he accidentally hit, I guess, the last dial call or whatever, and he called the girlfriend. So
GBI Director Vernon Keenan himself took the unusual step of personally issuing a letter clearing Officer Boynton in the shooting, but he signed this letter first, incorrectly calling it the death and suicide of Jessica Boynton.
How can we trust anything the GBI says in this case?
There are a lot of questions that I would love to have answered, and unfortunately, it appears those questions will never be answered.
It's not even just you against your husband now, it's you against the whole Griffin Police Department.
And the GBI.
Up next on The Reveal, Officer Boynton is arrested by his own department.
You have the right to remain silent, do you understand that?
But not for the shooting.
Welcome back to The Reveal. First, Jessica fought for her life, then she fought for her children. The last thing she worried about was her belongings. A search for her things and a search for justice will end with her ex-husband in handcuffs.
Police department. I smoked and smoke, and I can't get an answer to the door.
A police officer's wife, shot in the head the night she was packing up to leave him. The officer's duty weapon found under her unconscious body.
Glock 40. She would have never done this. I don't know why.
Jessica Boynton was flown to an Atlanta trauma center where her surgeon questioned the report of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Her husband moved out the weeks the young mother was still in a coma.
Things that belonged to you disappeared while you were in a coma.
Right.
I mean, these were your things, and while you were in a coma, your husband at the time moved them out of your apartment, right?
He did.
Officer Matthew Boynton was cleared in the shooting months before it was officially ruled an attempted suicide. Jessica filed a complaint with Griffin Police after their divorce, alleging Officer Boynton refused to return many of her belongings.
They asked you for a statement, but they also asked him for a statement. What did he say?
He said that he didn't have anything.
None of it?
None of it.
Was that true?
No.
Unzip it. It's Jessica stuff.
That's a whistleblower named Will Sanders. He showed up at police headquarters and turned in a gym bag. Inside, dozens of Jessica's things, including her bras and underwear. Sanders showed investigators a cell phone video recorded by Officer Boynton's new girlfriend. She's the one who got Jessica's bag from the officer's storage room so Sanders could turn it in.
I'm sure he's not going to be a happy camper when he finds out that bag's missing. Because that right here is about, 5 felonies? Well, I mean, I ain't a rocket scientist. I ain't a lawyer. Well, let me tell you, I'm a truck driver.
Before Will Sanders found this bag, who was investigating this case?
Nobody.
So Will essentially was the self-appointed citizen investigator.
Yes.
And he solved it.
He did.
You have the right to remain silent. Do you understand now?
Officer Boynton was brought in for questioning by his fellow officers.
You wrote a statement saying you didn't have any of our items.
We gave everything back that we had.
Whose bag is that?
Jessica's.
And the contents in the bag?
And it's got all her stuff in it.
See, I did not have any other items of Jessica's. This is Matthew Boynton. Is that your statement?
Yes, sir.
What is that, Matthew?
That's Jessica's bag.
The bag was turned into us. We have possession of the bag that came out of your storage room. Is that true?
Yes, sir.
Do you believe that statement to be accurate and true?
Not now.
Did you believe it then?
No, sir.
Officer Boynton takes off his Griffin police uniform for the last time. Arrested by his own department on 2 felony charges, filing a false statement and violating his oath of office.
But when you knew you had the bag and you didn't do anything about it, man, you put me in a situation where I don't have any other choice.
I'm clear. I'm clear. There's no excuse for it. Here.
How long did it take for the district attorney to bring this to the grand jury?
A year.
A year.
A full year.
For 6 of those months, the Griffin district attorney couldn't find Officer Boynton's oath of office. An ADA told Jessica one of the charges against Griffin's ex-officer and her ex-husband would have to be dropped.
It was gone.
It was gone.
This was a felony charge he was facing for violation of oath of office, and that piece of paper vanishes, and so does the charge.
Yep.
A newspaper reporter found a copy on file with the magistrate court 1 floor directly below the DA's Spalding County office. Then the original was discovered in police evidence.
The grand jury comes back with an indictment, right?
No. They came back with a no bill.
No bill.
No bill.
He was completely cleared.
Completely.
How can you have a confession and then not get an indictment?
The Griffin Police Department wasn't done. They had a new target, right?
That's it. It was me.
And what's your Facebook name?
Will Sanders.
Police got a secret search warrant for 7 months' worth of Will Sanders' private Facebook messages.
What did they allege was the crime they were investigating to get your private Facebook messages, not only without your permission, but without your knowledge?
They said I was connected to 2 commercial burglaries.
What?
Yep, 2 commercial burglaries.
In what the DA and police department now insist was merely a typo, Griffin police swore before a judge that they needed access to Will Sanders' private messages as part of an unrelated burglary investigation.
No one outside of Griffin knew about this shooting before you started asking questions.
Correct.
You filed the first records requests to find out what happened inside that apartment with Matthew Boynton and his now ex-wife.
Yes, correct.
And that led to our investigation, which led to international coverage of this.
Yes.
If they suspect you're the origin of all of this embarrassing news in the Griffin Police Department, that's a pretty strong motive to come after Will Sanders.
Absolutely.
Police Chief Mike Yates replied to Sanders on the official Griffin Police Department Facebook page. The chief promised the fruits of the search warrant would be released upon request to any persons interested in the entire scope of your actions, activities, motives, and history.
Do you see this as retribution against a whistleblower?
Absolutely. He came straight after me.
The chief sent this text to the district attorney at 9:23 on a Friday night, asking for special permission to release Sanders' private Facebook messages before the Boynton criminal case went to the grand jury.
Are any of us safe from this kind of...
No.
What can a citizen do to protect themselves from this?
Zero.
So in the end, no one was held accountable for that shooting or for lying to police. What happens next?
Well, the GBI refused to reopen its investigation. Matthew and Jessica, they're still fighting over custody of the kids. And remember, even though the Griffin Police Department fired Officer Boynton, he was completely cleared by that grand jury no bill.
So that Officer Boynton is still able to get another job with a different police department?
Absolutely. He has a clean record with Georgia Peace Officer Standards and Training, so he can work for any police department that will hire him.
If you have a news tip or a comment on one of our investigations, email us at thereveal@11alive.com.
If you have a news tip or a comment on one of our investigations, email us at thereveal@11alive.com.
You've been watching The Reveal, a show fueled by investigations that have impact.
And we'll see you next week for The Reveal, an investigative show where news is made.